It's Tuesday, March 23rd, and it's time for your Barbados Today Morning News Update. Government is being urged to assist former LIAT employees in Barbados who are now struggling to make ends meet after a year of being dismissed from the carrier. The appeal was made by opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley in Parliament yesterday. He said that the government of Antigua and Barbuda has been speaking on the matter, and in his opinion, it's high time Barbados's voice was heard.
I start with the reality that these people are Barbadians and that something more must be done, should have been done, should evidently have been done, should apparently and obviously be done in their interests. We don't have to shout across the Caribbean at one another to make sure that we speak with loud voice and that our message is understood. We don't have to have a shouting match across the Caribbean to make sure that our voices are heard in other jurisdictions concerning our interests on behalf of our Barbadian people. Now, if an arrangement, unfortunately, has been generated by an understanding among governments who operated this entity, then a second reason is constituted as to why Barbados should be strong and loud in what it is saying in the interest of these LIAT workers. And not only strong and loud in what it is saying, but also obvious and evident in what it is doing on behalf of these Barbadian workers.
Adding his voice to the protracted non-payment of severance by the failed carrier, Bishop Atherley pointed out that next month will mark a year since the 100-plus employees have been out of work. He said due to no fault of their own, the workers are left to suffer both the indignity and the hardships associated with the plight of being unemployed and uncompensated.
My understanding is that these people were given, Mr. Speaker, a one-off payment of $2,400 in August of 2020. $2,400 in August of 2020. That brings us to about 8 months now since then. $300 per month for the last 8 months. That's less than the minimum wage that you're proposing. $300 per month for the last 8 months. You think you can live on that, Mr. Speaker? I suspect not. $300, a one-off compassionate payment. $300 for the last 8 months. Now, a few of them have had NIS responses to their plight, but the majority of them, and there are 100 of them, have not, because, Mr. Speaker, by arrangements made prior to their service, arrangements between the partnering governments in LIAT as an enterprise, a regional enterprise, though an Antiguan company registered in Antigua, arrangements made before they would have started their tenure, their service. The NIS had to be paid in Antigua and not in Barbados. Therefore, the complexities of the situation, a limited liability company in Antigua registered their national insurance paid in Antigua as opposed to being paid in Barbados, puts them at a serious disadvantage, which has brought about serious hardship and stress. If the government cares, the government needs to shout more loudly. The government needs to be more proactive in what it is doing to redress this situation and ensuring that these people are helped.
Prime Minister Mia Mottley has declared that the April 1st introduction of the minimum wage in Barbados was no joke, even as she warned against any attempts to raise prices in the country. The minimum wage is set to increase from $6.25 to $8.50 an hour, or $340 per week. The Prime Minister told lawmakers yesterday she has been hearing the concerns about the proposed pay hike, but insisted government must stand by the country's most vulnerable to ensure they have a fair wage or even a livable wage.
So that those people who want to arbitrarily, even before this thing is given a chance, carry up prices, rest assured we have eyes, we have hands, we have a voice, and we have parliament. And we have parliament. I am not going to agree that people are going to be unfared in this country because this government is doing the right thing, which should have been done by a government of Barbados to protect those at the bottom of the working chain in this country from unreasonably low wages. And therefore, come April, as promised, April 1 will not be an April Fool's joke for those earning minimum wages in this country. It will be a new deal, not an April Fool's joke. And Mr. Speaker, I look forward to Cabinet receiving, therefore, this week the draft order that will complete the process. We have gone through the Blue Ribbon Committee. We've come back to Cabinet. We've published in accordance with the legislation. The time is now to consummate the deal with ordinary working Barbadians who have little or no options other than to rely on a government intervening on their own behalf in this nation.
Meantime, Prime Minister Motley says changes are coming to the way housing solutions are approved for Barbadians. She stressed that housing solutions for low-income earners cannot be funded alone by direct cash injections from government, but instead a multi-pronged approach is needed to make all aspects of housing affordable for citizens.
We need to be able to make sure that we can have an aggressive program that is premised not on government's balance sheet alone, but is premised also on government using its enabling and empowering powers to be able to put people together with people who have access to mortgages in order to be able to purchase their own properties. So I say that to say to you that you'll probably find a multidisciplinary approach to the provision of housing in this country. People who will buy genuinely from the private sector, and there are a number of major private developments going on at different levels. People who will buy from Hope Direct because invariably they are earning $4,000 and less, and therefore what we've tried to do is to be able to reduce the cost of capital, reduce the cost of land, reduce the cost of construction, and reduce the cost of the development of services, so that by having 4 different reductions coming from different angles, that you make housing more affordable for the average policeman, the average teacher, the average nurse, especially single parents in this country who do not have a second income coming in. And where do we give them the opportunity for the second income? By putting the photovoltaic panels on their house and allowing them to assign the revenue benefits such that they do not even have to pay a cent then for the purchase of the land, because the value of the land has been taken care of by the revenue to come over the 15 years from the photovoltaic panels on the roof of the land.
The Prime Minister also revealed that government was already in the process of outlining plans to make derelict homes previously built for low-income housing available for purchase at significantly reduced rates.
I said to the Minister of Housing, those houses remaining at River and elsewhere that have been unoccupied for years. Remember the last government left a whole set of houses unoccupied, Mr. Speaker? You used to live in St. Philip at one point, so you should know them well. And then also others. What we have said is that rather than trying to fix it up fully and do all of those things, discount it heavily and sell it to single parents who invariably can get their families to help do some of the repairs. But when you have dropped the price by about $65,000, there's more than enough in there for them to buy what has to be bought and to get their families to fix it up, rather than leaving these houses empty and then having the situation of single parents fighting to find somewhere to live in this country and being thrown.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our Caribbean neighbors now, Guyana is reportedly getting a reduced number of COVID-19 vaccines from the COVAX facility. We get more from News Source Guyana.
Initially, Guyana was informed by COVAX that it will be supplying the country with 100,000 doses of the vaccine just as a first tranche. A worried Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, announced today that COVAX has since informed the government that it will be reducing that promised supply to just over 24,000 doses.
As you also know, that we were expecting from COVAX to get vaccines. They initially promised us to give to Guyana vaccines for 20% of our population in this year. We received a letter from them about a month and a half ago where they promised to send as a first tranche 100,800 vaccines or doses of vaccines. That they then revised that total to that they would be sending within the month 33,000 doses of vaccine. And today I actually received another letter to say that within the next 3 weeks that we can expect 24,000 doses of the vaccine. And they have not only done this to Guyana, they have done this to Suriname and to some of the other Caribbean countries where they have constantly reduce the amount of the allocation to these countries.
Dr. Anthony said plans were already being made to ensure certain segments of the population receive the vaccines. But with the reduction, the government will now have to continue to look for alternative sources.
And finally, U.S. police are reporting that 10 people, including a police officer, are dead after a gunman opened a fire at a grocery market in Boulder, Colorado. A suspect is now in custody. Boulder Police Chief Maris Harrell announced the death toll at a news conference Monday night.
Our hearts of this community go out to the victims of this horrific incident. We know of 10 fatalities at the scene, including one of our Boulder PD officers by the name of Eric Talley, who's been on the Boulder Police Department since 2010. He's served in numerous roles supporting the Boulder Police Department and the community of Boulder. And I have to tell you, the heroic action of this officer when he responded to this scene. At 14:30 hours, the Boulder Police Department began receiving phone calls of shots fired in the area and a phone call about a possible person with a patrol rifle. Officer Talley responded to the scene, was the first on the scene, and he was fatally shot.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.